بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. I would like to present my condolences in advance for the Martyrdom anniversary of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, to whom this talk tonight is dedicated. So the talk tonight is on the about one of the well-known titles of the Imam, and that's the very title of al-Kadhim. So you see that Musa ibn Jafar is being known by this title, and the title is being used even more than his name. Whenever we refer to him, we call Imam al-Kadhim. So to know about why Imam is called as Kadhim, what does it mean this title, what it represents in Shia literature, what it represents in Quranic perspective. So if Imam alayhi salam is known by his title, means that this title was being seen frequently in his actions. So as his followers, what do we need to also follow so that we can also have we can learn from him, from this title, and what we can do so we can also be among the ones who can be called them in a way. When we look at the historical accounts that we have, we can see that, for example, we have one of the scholars, our brothers in Sunnah, who is about Ibn Talha Shafi'i. He has a book, مطالب السؤول في مناقب آل الرسول, which is about the characteristics and attributes of Ahlul Bayt. So we have many of the Shafi'i scholars, specifically the earliest scholars, and you see even Shafi'i himself, they have works about Ahlul Bayt and love of Ahlul Bayt, and Shafi'i in his book explicitly talks about the necessity of loving Ahlul Bayt. Ibn Talhat Shafi'i, he is a well-known lecturer, khatib, in Damascus, and he was also a mufti, someone who was giving fatwas on religious matters. When he talks about the Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, that's his this is the excerpt. This is the what he says about Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. إنه الإمام جليل القدر عظيم الشأن. It is the Imam whose status is very high, very respected. كثير التحجد المواظب على الطاعات. If someone is known for paying attention to worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to doing so the rituals, doing the prayers, doing so kind of paying attention to the specific attention to the Islamic practices. المشهور بالكرامات، مسحر الليل بالسجدة والقيام، ومتم اليوم بالصيام والصدقة والخيرات. He's known for his good deeds and for his benevolence. He is the one who is known for staying awake most of the night, performing sajda, prostration, والقيام ومتم اليوم بالصيام والصدقة والخيرات. And he spends his days by fasting, by paying charity, by helping others. المسمى بالكاظم. So Ibn al-Shafi'i says he was, I forgot to mention that he was living in 7th century after Hijrah. So he says that Musa ibn Ja'far is known as Kadhim. So Kadhim, literally, what does it mean? Kadhim means someone who can control his anger, who can restrain his anger. So Ibn al-Shafi'i says he's Musa ibn Ja'far al-Musamma bil-Kadhim لعفوه وإحسانه بمن أساءه. Why Musa ibn Ja'far was known as Kadhim? Because it was known among the people for being a person who forgives the mistakes of the others, who forgives the sins of the others, this slip of the others. And because of his good behavior, because of the benevolence he had towards the other, especially towards the one وَإِحْسَانِهِ بِمَنْ أَسَاءَهُ. Not only he was benevolent to every people, but even to the ones who did bad to him, who treated him wrongly. But Imam al-Kadhim was someone who forgave his enemies and was benevolent towards his enemies. Then he continues, Ibn Talha continues, وَالْمُسَمَّى بِالْعَبْدِ الصَّالِحِ. He is known also as Abd al-Salih, the pious, the good servant of Allah. That's one of the titles that we have for Imam al-Kadhim al-Islam, Abd al-Salih. لِكَثْرَةِ عُبُودِيَّتِهِ, because of is well known for his commitment to worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and practices. وَالْمَشْهُورِ بِبَابِ الْحَوَائِجِ. And also he was known, so his statements from the 7th century after Hijrah. He was known also as the Bab al-Hawa'ij, the door to wishes. So someone who, so it's like a door that you knock the door, and if it opens, your wishes will come true. إذ كل من يتوسل إليه أصاب حاجته. Why he was being called Bab al-Hawa'ij? Because whoever came to him, whoever asked for him to intercede, was successful in getting what he wished for, what he asked for. كراماته تحار منها العقول. And what is being narrated about his actions, about the actions that goes beyond the normal, for example, behavior of the people, whose karamat, whose highest noble actions تهار منها العقول. So people wondered about these actions, about the status of the Imam, and about the nobility of his behavior. So this is just an example of a Sunni scholar praising Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. And you see the kind of attributes he ascribes to Imam alayhi salam. So this title represents, manifests the fact that Imam alayhi salam forgave so much from his enemies, acted so with benevolence, that people came to know him as someone who is forgiving, someone who is managing, controlling, suppressing his anger. And it is this attribute of Imam alayhi salam. You see the root coming from the verses of Quran. It's the Quranic teaching. It's chapter Al-Imran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ عَرْضُهَا السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ أُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs us to rush, to compete for the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the heaven, for the Jannah, so big that just one side of it goes beyond the whole earth and the skies above it. وعدت للمتقين. It is prepared for the pious people. الذين ينفقون في السراء والضراء والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس والله يحب المحسنين. And what are the top-notch characteristics, noble characteristics of these people, of these muttaqin, the pious people? They are the ones that they help others, they give charity, explicitly help people in the time of the difficulties, they help people. They are the ones who tend to serve the community. They are the ones the community benefits from them. وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ. And they are the ones who are in control of their anger. It's very rare to see them get angry. And even when it happens, they are able to restrain it. We don't see them acting upon anger. وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ. You see them forgiving the mistakes of the people. وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves these good doers. So when we are talking about kalm al-ghayz, when we are talking about suppressing one's anger, this can be traced back to either two different personal characteristics. So kalm al-ghayz, suppressing one's anger, can come either from is a characteristic of benevolence. When someone has the uh, power to punish the ones who made him angry. But he restrained himself. So it's very important. So when we are talking about suppressing one's anger, the high what actually seems to be the best example is in those cases that the one who got angry is able to show his anger, is able to practice it, is able to punish the person who made him angry, but then he refrains from it. We have this hadith from Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. And Imam alayhi salam says, من كظم غيظا وهو يقدر على إمضائه, whoever suppress a type of anger, who is able to execute it, who is able to act upon it. This is very important. And it's what's known about Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. It was just enough for him to, even not to act himself, just to ask his companions, Shias, to punish the one who disrespected him, to punish the one who practiced injustice against him. He was able to show his anger and execute him, considering his social status, but he was controlling it. So Imam al-Baqir says, whoever does that, refrain from practicing his anger, while he is able to do that, حشى الله قلبه أمنا وإيمانا يوم القيامة. In the day of judgment, Allah would fill his heart with security, with safety. Allah assures him of his safety. وإيمانا يوم القيامة. Allah would fill his heart with belief in the day of judgment. So his heart would be among the ones that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls qalban salim, a healthy heart, a heart that comes to the day of judgment, a soul that comes to the day of judgment, and it's purified with faith, with true belief. We have another narration, another hadith, is from Abi Hamza, and he narrates it from Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, and he reports it from the Prophet, peace be upon him. The Prophet says, من أحب السبيل من أحب السبيل إلى الله عز وجل جرعتان. Among the best ways to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to sip two types of sips, جرعتان. Sip of anger, جرعة غيظ تردها بحلم, that you swallow your anger and respond with benevolence, respond with forgiveness, with tolerance. Maybe it's a better translation. تردها بحلم, respond with tolerance. وجرعة مصيبة تردها بصبر. And the second one, the second sip, is when you swallow the sadness because of something happened to you, the loss of someone, for example, a dear one, that you respond with patience. The Prophet, peace be upon him, says these two sips are among the best ways, most loved ways to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So just reflecting on these hadiths, you see that, as I mentioned, the tolerance and control of anger has to do a lot with forgiveness and with benevolence of someone's soul. But at the same time, it's not only the matter of benevolence, is not only the matter of forgiveness, it's also a matter of rationality. It comes also under rationality. It comes also under wisdom. Because someone who is able to control their anger, they are able to look beyond that specific moment, to look toward the future, to consider the consequences of their actions. They might be able to relieve the anger. They might be able to execute their anger, but it doesn't mean necessarily that the consequences would be to their benefit. Just look around us. How many people, including ourselves, how many people we know, how many times we know of ourselves when we acted upon anger and we regretted it afterward. Sometimes the consequences, the damage done when one is angry and acts upon anger cannot be easily compensated. So, although I'm in power, although I'm in authority, although I have power over my son, over my daughter, although I have power over my employees, I can act upon it. But if I act upon my anger, what happens in most of the time is the consequences will back to haunt me. We regret it. So the ability to control one's anger, the ability to refrain from practicing anger is also coming from rationality, coming from the fact that I think twice before acting. I think about the consequences. What happens if I beat my son? If I fire an employee who is loyal to me just because a mistake they had, I will end up hurting myself later. So this is also a very important point that for example, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, there is a hadith that Thabit, he narrates from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, that Imam alayhi salam says, كَذْمُ الْغَيْظِ عَنِ الْعَدُوِّ فِي دَوْلَاتِهِمْ تَقِيَّةٌ حَزْمٌ لِمَنْ أَخَذَ بِهِ وَالتَّحَرُّرٌ مِنَ التَّعَرُّضِ لِلْبَلَاءِ فِي الدُّنْيا. Imam alayhi salam says, for example, if you have enemy and you are living in a circumstances that your enemy, for whatever reason, he is in power. So, and you get angry because of the way that they treat you. Imam says to be able to control your anger, not only is a matter of the noble moral characteristics, but it also protects you about the consequences of acting in rush without thinking. It's kind of hazm, it's kind of caution. تحرر من التعرض للبلاء في الدنيا. You protect yourself from exposing yourself to different damages. And Imam alayhi salam in the end of the hadith, Imam alayhi salam says, فَجَامِلُ النَّاسِ يَسْمَنْ ذَلِكَ لَكُمْ عِنْدَهُمْ وَلَا تَعَادُوهُمْ فَتَحْمِلُوهُمْ عَلَى رِقَابِكُمْ فَتَضِلُّوا. Imam says, so if that's the case, so try to Be tolerant when interacting with people. Do not make them your enemies. Although they are at fault, for example, but making them your enemies by, for example, responding with insult. Someone practices injustice against me, and I'm getting angry. I insult him, or I involve him in conflict physically. It does not help. The only benefit, the only consequences is that it increases the enmity between you. And that would end up to hurt you eventually. So this is very important to understand that when we are talking about Kadhim al-Ghayz, when we are talking about repressing anger, it's not only a moral characteristic, it's not only a matter of nobility, it's not only a matter of benevolence, but it's only a matter of rationality. And when we look at the lifestyle of Ahlul Bayt, we look at the lifestyle of the Prophet, peace be upon him, you see that is something very manifested in their lifestyle. When we remember the lifestyle of the Prophet, peace be upon him, there were people throwing trash on his head when he was passing by. People who attacked him with the stone when he went to Taif. And so many other instances, dozens and hundreds instances of treating Prophet, peace be upon him, with disrespect. But you see the way that the Prophet responded. And the verse of Quran that emphasizes بما رحمة من الله لنت لهم ولو كنت فظا غليظ القلب لانفضوا من حولك. It was this kind of benevolence, this mercy, this tolerance that the Prophet, peace be upon him, practiced that made people love him so much. I mentioned once in the story of the Peace of Hudaybiyah that when pagans of Mecca, they sent someone to negotiate with the prophets, they sent someone very known, very respected among the pagans for having a sharp eye, a sharp mind, to evaluate and assess the camp of the prophet, to see if the situation would maybe suitable for them to attack, not to engage in a peace agreement. So when he came back and the pagans asked him about what he saw, so he mentioned many different matters, including that I saw people that competing with one another just to catch the drop of water that falls when Muhammad was making ablution, was making wudu. His companions loved him so much, they competed with one another to get the drop of water falling down when he's doing wuzu, just as a blessing. So the love that I saw among the people around Muhammad, the way that they love him, I'm telling you that they will not leave him until the last drop of their blood. Why people of Mecca? Why those people we heard about the difficulties that the Prophet, peace be upon him, went through when he started his mission? Why they came at the end to love him so much? Because of the Prophet's moral characteristics, including his tolerance, including his كظم الغيظ, repressing his anger. So we have in one of the reports mentioned, we have it in Tariq Baghdad, we have it in Al-Irshad and I'lam al-Wara. It's a report about the life of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. That someone was from the he was known to be from the generations of the second caliph. أن شخص من أحفاد عمر ibn al-Khattab كان يسيء للإمام. He was insulting Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. ويكيل السب والشتم لجده أمير المؤمنين. And he was going so far that he was insulting Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. So some of the companions, they couldn't bear this anymore. They couldn't tolerate this anymore. They decided to kill him. فأراد بعض شيعة الإمام اغتياله. And Imam was informed and Imam stopped him. فنهاهم عليه السلام عن ذلك. Imam said, don't do that. ورأى أن يعالجه بغير ذلك. Imam decided to solve the matter in a different way. He asked where this guy is living, and Imam was told that this guy is actually farming in somewhere close to Medina. فركب عليه السلام بغلته ومضى عليه متنكرا. So Imam alayhi salam, without informing him in advance, he went to the place, to the farm, and he saw him working on his farm. فوجده في مزرعته فأقبل نحبه فصاح به لا تتأذع لنا. So when Imam was walking towards him, so Imam was going through the farm, the guy was shouting at Imam, do not get close, you are actually ruining my what I have. You go through the farm, so you are maybe if it's, for example, grain or something, you are ruining it when you walk through. But Imam didn't stop. واستمر الإمام حتى وصل إليه. So when Imam came to the guy he is known to insult him frequently, insult Amir al-Mu'minin. جلس إلى جنبه وأخذ يلاطفه ويحدثه بأطيب الحديث. Imam sat next to him. They started talking with him with kindness, with benevolence, the best way possible. Imam talked to him with respect. فقال له بلطف ولين كم غرمت في زرعك هذا. So Imam asked, so Imam knew that year possibly there was some shortcomings and the farmers, they suffered to some extent. Imam asked, how much you lost this year? So because of what happened, because of, for example, lack of water, so on and so forth. And he said, or how much you spend? He said, 100 dinar. And Imam said, how much you hope that you can gain from this land? The guy said, أنا لا أعلم الغيب. I don't know how much I would get from it. Imam says, how much you hope? Just overall. He said, overall, أرجو أن يجيئني منه 100 دينار. I hope after I finish my work this year, I sell whatever. So whatever I have, I will get around 200 dinars. And then Imam gave him 300 dinars right away. Said, هذه لك وزرعك على حاله. So get this 300 dinars, and you also still have your what you hope to sell later. So the companion who narrates says فتغير لعمري وخجل من نفسي على ما فرط من قبل في حق الإمام. So the guy felt very embarrassed, regretted what he did to Imam so far. So later on, so the companions who narrate the story says that later on, I saw him meeting Imam in front of the Masjid al-Nabi, the Mosque of the Prophet. فوجد قد سبقه فلما رأى الإمام مقبلا قام إليه تكريما وانطلق يهتف. When he saw that Imam is coming towards the mosque, he stood out of respect for the Imam and shouted in front of the others, Allah أعلم حيث يجعل رسالته. Allah knows the best who he picks for this mission. And then some of the people around him who were against Imam started to question him, why you are saying this? And he started to fight back, defending the Imam. And it was then that Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam looked at his companions and he said, أيما كان خيرا? Which of these approaches was the best? ما أردتم أو ما أردت أن أصلح أمره بهذا المقدار. Your solution to kill the guy, or my solution, I spent some money, but I changed his perspective. I helped him to correct himself. I gave him another opportunity. Which one is better? You see, that's another example, just to show, just to see how different acts Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam and compared to us in the similar situation. How do we react to someone who start insulting us in the public? Not only us, but our fathers or our imams. And we have the power to punish that person, to make him silent forever. This is the beauty of the moral characteristics of Ahlul Bayt. In Tariq Baghdadi, there are other instances mentioned similar cases of people who disrespected Imam, who treated Imam poorly, and Imam responded with benevolence. And that's why you see he is being titled, being known as al-Kadhim. As Ibn al-Shafi'i explains, for his forgiveness. And it's not once, twice, 3 times, it's frequent action of Imam alayhi salam. And it actually goes in line with Imam's mission. Imam is not thinking, Imam is not concerned about his personal gain. Rather, for Imam alayhi salam, it's the matter of helping everyone. Even the ones who seems to lost the path, but Imam still finds there is a hope. It's the very fact that why Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam on the day of Ashura, and he knew that he will not survive the battle. When he addresses the army and trying to convince them that what they do is wrong, when he mentions, he shouts, cries out, Hal min nasirin yansurani. Imam alayhi salam knew that having 10, 20, 30, or even 100 people from the army coming, joining him, does not change anything, the result of the battle. But Imam was concerned about them. So The call of the Imam was not for himself, was for them, out of the compassion the Hussein had for them. This is the same compassion you see in the verses of Quran when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the Prophet, لَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ أَلَّا يَكُونُ مُؤْمِنِينَ. O Prophet, you are so much concerned about them that you are killing, like you are killing yourself over the fact that they are not accepting your mission. They are not believing. Why the Prophet was almost killing himself? Because out of his compassion for them. Because he knew what's the consequence of rejecting the invitation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's what we have to pay attention to, and it's what we have from the lifestyle of Ahlul Bayt. So we have this narration. I'm not sure about the hadith, so I forgot to write it down, whether it's from Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam or from Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. It's really beautiful. Imam alayhi salam says, Ya bunay, inni usikum biwasiyatin man hafidhaha intafa'a biha. Imam says, I'm giving you an advice that whoever maintain this advice, whoever listen to it, would benefit from it. إذا أتاكم آت فأسمع أحدكم في الأذن اليمنى مكروها ثم تحول إلى اليسرى فاعتذر لكم وقال إني لم أقل شيئا. If someone came to you and he told you in your right ear something unpleasant, disrespected you, insulted you, and then came to the left side, to the left ear, ثم تحول إلى اليسرى فاعتذر لكم, and then he apologized and even denied what he said before. إني لم أقل شيئا. I didn't say anything. Imam says, فَقْبِلُوا عُذْرَهُ. Accept their excuse. Excuse them. And interesting, this Imam says that if you do that, that will benefit you. So the fact that you forgive people, the fact that you act with benevolence, the fact that you do not attempt to punish people when they make a mistake, that will eventually help you and your life. People will start respecting you, will start loving you, and that's to your benefit. So I'm wrapping up my discussion tonight again by emphasizing this beautiful moral characteristic, repressing one's anger, that is being known as the title for Musa ibn Jafar alayhi salam, because of how frequent he practiced at the time. So it means that at his time that was the case, that people were disrespecting him. There were people who were not hesitating to show their enmity, and then it was the approach of the Imam to forgive, to correct them with benevolence. And if we claim to be their followers, for sure we cannot be in that level of tolerance and benevolence. But we have to strive for. We have to work on ourselves to teach ourselves to forgive people, even when they are making mistakes that cannot be justified. They are making mistakes that they cannot even deny it, but you know that they are regretting it. Just to forgive, just to show benevolence. That's what we ought to learn from our Imams, and that's what will help us improve our spiritual capacity, to improve our spiritual perfection, and to become true human in the sense that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. Someone who can be true manifestation of divine characteristics as representative. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is forgiving, is benevolent. And we ought to mimic that, to be forgiving towards other and to love each other despite mistakes that happens from one another. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the blessing to benefit, to follow the school of Ahlul Bayt and to make them our true role model according to whom we shape our characteristics and our life, inshallah. Please recite a salawat.